Good morning. We are here. We're doing it. Hmm, that's good. We're doing the thing. We're answering questions, but we're chatting one specific today. I had a question on one of our other brands. The BJJ Physio is an online uh, physical therapy rehab medicine brand based, of course, on the grappler and the grappling athlete and the things that they struggle with as someone who has practiced that art for some time. um, that context, knowing what those folks go through constantly, gives us a better idea about how to address all of those kinds of things. And that's sort of what we're talking about here is understanding context, understanding when you find information on the internet. You can kind of lump this podcast episode in with the other ones and say, here's how you figure out what's real. Well, I'll tell you that my approach probably makes a little more sense to me, and I'll try to explain it to you. But the idea that you'll see things on the internet that say never do this, always try, always do this device, or never do this exercise. I got to tell you, I've heard the words never from patients many times. I've seen it on the internet a million times. I don't think it ever applies. I mean, the only times I think that the words always and never apply to medicine, they apply to other things. Um, well, they're never. And that's probably the only times you could just say that the word never applies to this kind of case. Um, there's always a contextual reason to do something, say something, prescribe a certain movement, prescribe a certain medicine. It just, if you have all of the contextual details, you can make that decision. And so many times we are not privy to all the details. And so um, we can't make a great decision. So just a good example, I have a video and oh boy, I guess it's on our BJJ Physio YouTube channel. It is one where we collaborated with Eli Knight, a terrific guest on that episode. And he was helping demonstrate some jujitsu related movements and some of the areas that are consistently complained about in jujitsu. And one of the big things is back pain. It makes a lot of sense. It is a flexion related sport. It's a flexion biased sport. You are trying to defend what we call the inside space, or this zone between your elbows and your knees and your hips, so that you can't be spread out and taken advantage of from that perspective is for grapplers. But the idea that in that video, we were discussing how drills to strengthen ourselves into that flexion moment will decrease the loads on our spine and improve our efficiency on the mat. That's the basics of it. And so I don't know if this person has some education. It just sounded that way because the question was well laid out, and that how would work on the flexion musculature address issues being stacked when all those muscles are on the extensor side of things. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the video itself wasn't attempting to address um, what you do when you've been stacked. It's what you sort of do to maintain that efficiency and put less stress on structures that shouldn't be getting stress. And you could go on and talk details about things like that, but on the internet, it's hard. You can't make anything troll proof. I've avoided making content for a very long time because you feel like I don't want to deal with all these questions. Trying to explain myself over very nitty details that are not, really just take away from the point of putting a lot of good information out there is to help folks, and then getting into side arguments. It just takes the energy out of it. If you're putting information out, good job, congratulations. You're doing something that takes a lot of guts. If you haven't begun because you're afraid of people, getting into your DMs, and you know what, man, just no one DMs and hates down. Think about it that way. And if anybody's hating on you or nitpicking you, I'm sure they're not doing that much. So here, salute. I want to talk also about the information we get when we are talking about context. I mean, so another good example is when we have students here. They hear us say things to patients sometimes that don't really jive with what they understand in movement science or pain science. And many times it's because our understanding of that patient at that time would allow us in to understand, well, if I said something this way, if I gave them the right cue, if I said, hey, when I lift this load into a hinging pattern, I want your knees to be a little bent, a tiny crack of your knees, athletic knees, something like that. If I know that patient is having an issue with, let's say, knee extension, I might say, hey, I need you to lock your knees on this exercise. Well, unless you're doing something like a Jefferson curl, in the case of the example I'm laying out with hip hinge, you don't necessarily lock your knees out. So when you instruct that person to, hey, go all the way to full extension, and you know that they can't get there, then you know that they're going to wind up in that athletic knee position. So contextually, that makes perfect sense. I've had students right in that moment say, hey, why are we asking them to lock their knees? And I have to give them like the crazy eye. What are you doing? You're getting right in the way of this flow, right in the way of this connection that this person understands my cue now. So I don't want them to lose focus. I don't want the, so that kind of connection is something that we value here, but understanding all of that context. And so that student in that example did not have that information. And the other thing too is, as lay folks looking around the internet for just answers, it's hard to discern whether or something is completely false, is just a liberty taken, from one little fact. Many times that happens. There's so many devices that are advertised where contextually appropriate information isn't really provided. It's more like, all right, so this foam roller will aid in healing. Okay, I mean, sure. Soft tissue manipulation aids in healing. Soft tissue manipulation of all kinds aids in healing. So you could use your own elbow, any other instrument, whatever. This aids in pain relief. Like, well, sure, yeah, okay. If you extend the fact that touching of any kind can decrease pain, sure. If you extend it to that device, then yes, it can. But these are the kinds of things that companies who produce devices and gimmicks and gadgets and things like that, less so people who do a service, can use this information, small bits of this information, and then not provide a ton of context, and then sell something that really we all get disappointed in because we wanted it to work. So I'll tell you, the only thing that's ever worked like all the time is making sure that you continue to move. Have fun with movement. It's the way that we stay young. It's the way that we don't think of movement anymore as like a burden or something I have to do to stay healthy. And just eat okay. If I ask 100 people on the street what is good to eat, what are good foods, what is a good time to eat, the basics, the very basics, I would bet no one would get the questions wrong. I mean, you would hear things like vegetables and fruit, lean proteins, and you would hear the right things. But then if you asked what was it that you ate yesterday or today, you get a giggle, you get a smile, and well, maybe I didn't do so good, or maybe I had some fried chicken, or I had some candy or whatever. Like, okay, fine. If that fits inside of the larger context of your nutrition, maybe you had fried chicken on a day that I asked, what'd you have yesterday? And then you had eaten clean all week, and that was just your cheat meal. Okay. Contextually, that makes perfect sense. I just caught you at a bad time. So I'm rambling now because just like talking about this stuff, I really enjoy getting as much of our brand out there as possible. I want to make this a regular thing. Again, anytime we're going to be, talking around morning Joe times at work. And so if you got questions, pop in. If you see an episode and you have a question, leave a comment. I'll surely get them. And otherwise, we will chat on other. Oh, thank you, GW School of Medicine. Can you see that? Yeah, I think you can. And apologies if you heard all the gym noise because we have a lively place in here. So I'll figure out if the sound is really bad in these episodes as we go along. All right. Well, cheers. See you later.